11 games to go for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Will they make the playoffs? Let's get an expert's opinion. Former opening day starter for the franchise and radio broadcaster Josh Collmenter in studio. So as we look at the final 11 games here, what do the Diamondbacks need to do to get in?
They just got to keep playing like they have. It was crazy, all the stuff they did against the Cubs. If they can just play like they do against the Cubs, they have a chance. But big matchup, the 2 games against the Giants. They can almost kind of put the Giants out of the playoff picture. But they're going to get Gallen and Kelly going in those 2 games. Should have those 2 guys on the weekend and then again on the last weekend. So you get 6 of your last 11 games should feature one of those 2 guys, and you like your chances.
Watching this team is torture. I'm just going to say it. How do you feel about their chances? What pitching staff, what bullpen are we going to get night to night with these last 11 games?
Exactly. I mean, I think they can win games when they need to, and they're almost back in that mode where if it gets down to extra innings, close game late, you almost feel like they're going to tie the game or take the lead. They've kind of got that mentality back that they had most of the first half of the season where any close game was never really in jeopardy because it seemed like they would do that at the end. But, I mean, you do have to shore up the back end of that bullpen for the playoffs. But I think with that trade, Seawold's been fantastic in that role, so that's really helped solidify it. But if you can get your horses going, I mean, they're the guys that win night in and night out.
Yeah, and you look at is the momentum off the Cubs series this weekend and the sweep of the Cubs, does momentum carry over day to day in baseball?
Oh, 100%. I mean, sometimes you get a reset with the off day, but, I mean, you're going to go into that clubhouse tomorrow knowing what you have against the Giants. It's almost the exact same feel as against the Cubs because it's another team that's kind of in the hunt. They're just 2 games back of a final wild card spot right now. They're getting their 2 horses, too. They're going to have throw Cobb and then their other ace, Webb.
Yeah,
So it's going to be great matchups.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you expect low-scoring games, and I think that kind of favors the Diamondbacks because if they can get some guys on, steal, show that brand of baseball, one-run games seem to go their way.
And when you think about, you have 2 against the Giants. These are huge. But then it looks like the playoff chase is going to be won in some American League cities. That seems wrong, doesn't it?
Very much. Just looking at their schedule, I wanted to see September because I wanted to see if it was the same way. Obviously, you don't play as many division games anymore. But to see them play the Cubs 7 times, to see them play the White Sox, the Yankees. It's so bizarre. I mean, the Giants kind of have a traditional end. They play the Dodgers a bunch, the Diamondbacks, and I think the Padres. So that's what you would expect, National League West opponents. And they just get the Giants here. They had the Rockies earlier in the month, and those were the only division opponents. So different, but could maybe help them because the Yankees are really out of it. White Sox definitely out of it. But then you get the Astros for a big 3-gamer that's, could decide who's in, who's out, or what spot they're going to get.
That could be a possible World Series preview, by the way. You're going to New York this weekend. You're jumping on the broadcast. You're catching a Yankees team that hasn't met expectations this year. Can you, as a player, having gone to New York, how do you not let the city get you? How do you make sure you're getting your rest?
Well, I think the big part is they were just there playing the Mets, so seeing it again.
So the city got them.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the thing about baseball is the Yankees. I mean, who knows how it stacks up, but you could get Garrett Cole. Any night a pitcher could do well. They still have some hitters in the lineup, some young guys that are trying to prove themselves. So sometimes teams like that, playing a bunch of their young guys, those guys are so hungry, so eager to get their chance to kind of showcase what they have the next season that they're going all out. So the D-backs can't take anyone lightly at this point, but especially a team that's probably on the outside of the playoffs picture at this point.
And take me back to being a young man when you made your major league debut and being in some of those situations when Gibby was the manager and the pressure-packed situations. How do you calm the nerves? How do you calm the heart rate when this much is on the line this late in the year?
I think the big part, I mean, my rookie year, we got a chance to win the division, and so you're pitching in some big games and in the playoffs, and the attitude that it's just another game. It's crazy, all the fanfare, how the intensity, you can feel it, like someone flipped a switch once it gets to the playoffs. There's extra everything, going with the D-back logo. Usually you're in front of your locker answering a couple questions, all of a sudden you're in the conference room. Everything's just up a couple notches, but I think some of these guys haven't been in some of those games, and then just playing in big games down the stretch kind of gets you used to that. So by the time, those last 4 or 5 games, when it really comes down to are they in, are they out, it's just going to feel like any of the rest of the games the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, when you look back on it, how much did those pitching in those pressure situations set the tone for the rest of your career?
I think once you can handle pitching in a big game or pitching in big games on the road, getting a chance to pitch in the playoffs and not letting that, alter anything that you do, just kind of stick to the same game plan, it gives you a ton of confidence because then a regular season game just seems like a walk in the park. And you
Yeah.
still have to have that focus every time, but to know you can do it at the ultimate level when the lights have been shining the brightest will really help, especially a lot of these young guys.
All right, expectations for this team. What should we expect out of them as we go into October? How should we make travel plans here at Arizona's Family to cover the postseason?
I mean, they're in a really good spot right now, and I think it just kind of depends. The Phillies are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now. So if they stay in the second spot, the D-backs right now, they'd get the Phillies. If they could go to the third spot, I think they'd end up with the Brewers. And I like the matchup against the Brewers a lot because, trying to go into Philadelphia and winning 2 out of 3 is tough, especially the way they've been playing. But, I mean, just to get a chance to get in there and, get to that opportunity, I think is all they want. But, even if they end up sneaking in with the third wild card spot and face the Brewers, it might seem like a letdown for them, but it might work out better in the big picture.
Is this a playoffs or bust type situation? How much disappointment should we expect if they don't get in?
I think it would be a huge disappointment. I think you would feel it in the clubhouse, especially the crazy start they got off to. I think they surged up to maybe 14 games, 15 games above 500. Riding-High were in first place for a lot of the first part of the year, and then big second half kind of letdown. Had a long road trip coming out of the All-Star break against some good teams, and then they started faltering, but they've found a way to get right back into the mix. And I think with just 11 games left, to beat out, you have to beat out the Reds and the Marlins, maybe the Cubs, the Giants, somewhere just to get in there. I think it would be a big letdown if they don't find a way to get one of those last couple wild card spots.
Do you think they need a guy out of the pen that throws over the top? You got anything left in there?
I probably do. It's been well rested for a while. So, just a different vantage point because I don't think they have anybody that throws quite the way I do.
Well, tell us, how did you adopt that throwing the way you threw? I mean, we'll show some video of it. How did you develop your delivery?
Everything was homemade for me. So when I was young, picked up a baseball and first started pitching. I don't know if it was always like that, but by the time I got to high school, I just threw right over the top. That's just naturally. And even in college, I would try to throw from a lower arm angle. That's just not how it worked. So my body was just kind of so used to it or set up to do that. So even guys that could kind of drop and change arm angles, I used to joke about when Brad Ziegler was here because we were about opposites. And he's like, I can't do what you do. I was like, well, I could never do what you do. And my pitching coach in college really loved it because it's so deceptive. You hide the ball so well. And for a guy that didn't have, incredible velocity, that really worked out in my favor to be able to hide and just be more deceptive.
And tell people what you're up to now. We're going to hear you on the radio broadcast. What else are you up to? And where can we find you in the social media world if you're in there?
Most of it's just on through the D-back stuff. I don't do a whole lot of things on social media, but get to hop in pre and post game every once in a while if they need someone to fill in. Make some appearances with the team here and there, but then have done quite a few games on the road this year on the broadcast, working with Chris, and so that's been a lot of fun.
And Greg Schulte obviously is hanging up the mic after so many years. Have you had a chance to be around him? What are you, as he gets ready to shut it down here, what are some of your thoughts on his career?
Yeah, it's been incredible for him to be, he's the voice of the D-backs. There hasn't been anybody else that's done it, and, to have 25 years, got to see him at the 25th reunion. A lot of guys came back. They've made sure to make a point to feature him. He got to throw out the first pitch. And, just some of the legendary calls. Anytime you hear the Luis Gonzalez walk-off, it's synonymous with Greg Schulte. So for this team to have a chance to get to the playoffs in his final year, I think would be a tremendous send-off for him. And, who knows what kind of run once you get in. If you get hot, that's all it takes.
Well, look forward to hearing you on the radio call as well. 11 games left. Diamondbacks Giants Tuesday night in downtown Phoenix.